I think every firefighter has a story. I made a list of everything that didn't make sense to me along the way. And that's what I'm trying to fix today. You know, they're paying us to train and to go and save lives. I mean, that's essentially what they're asking us to do. That's very important to me, is that you have pride in what we do.
This is the Fire Dog Podcast.
The views and opinions presented on today's episode are those of the speaker and do not necessarily represent the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.
Welcome, my name is Matt Wilson, and thank you for joining us for episode 12 of the Fire Dog Podcast. Our guest today has been in the Air Force for 28 years. He's served at multiple locations throughout the world. He's held nearly every position within the fire department, up to and including fire chief, and he's currently serving as the Air Force Fire Protection Career Field Manager. Please welcome Chief Master Sergeant Andy Morris. How's it going, Chief? Good to have you on.
Hey, how's it going? Great to hear from you guys. And so I think this podcast has been pretty well received. From what I understand, you went over thousands, you're in the thousands now of listeners. So that means the message is getting out there in some capacity. And, you know, in this day and age, we're always just trying to find a way to get the message out to folks. And I just think it's so amazing. You know, you all came up to me and were like, hey, we want to do a podcast. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but sounds good to me. Like, let's do it, you know? So, you know, I've heard of them. I know that people listen to them quite frequently. And I think it's pretty neat that we have folks who understand that kind of technology and can, levy it to our benefit of getting the message out there. You know, I really appreciate you all asking me on, but what I would ask is that, we go and seek out those firefighters that are out there. And, I think every firefighter has a story, something compelling that kept them in, called them to serve something greater than themselves. Every day in the Air Force, our trucks are responding somewhere around the world and making a difference. And I just think that there's plenty of opportunities to share those stories. So I really look forward to some of my favorite podcasts have been from the younger guys and gals out there, just riffing and just talking about, hey, what it is. And I don't think the messages need to be that long. They don't need to come on and talk for an hour. Maybe they come on and talk for 20 minutes. You know, maybe they come on and tell a story for 10 minutes. And that's interesting to me. And that will eat up like one of my bus rides into work or something like that. I could just throw that on and listen to it and, hear their perspective. So, I really hope that this podcast isn't a one-way tool where we're driving the message down. I think it needs to be a two-way tool that and you become a medium to where we can talk back and forth to each other. Real important, and real proud of you two for, really pulling this thing out of nowhere. If you think about it, it's April. I think, how many episodes have you done? Probably, where are we at? Like 9 or 8, 9, 10 right now?
You're going to be number 12.
So you're looking at, that many in this little amount of time. I saw you right before Christmas, Matt, and you approached me with it. And I just thought, wow, how cool is this? People are thinking next level stuff. And that's the kind of thinking we need from the folks up behind us, the next level stuff on how we can get after and get after some of the things and get those messages out to folks. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to see where you take this in the future. And I will say that you're only going to do this for so long. And maybe this becomes a program that we hand over to a next generation. It almost becomes a program of itself to where we would hand it over to, say, 2 other folks. And I look forward to it growing in the future and as something that we can use. And, we talked about maybe adding video to this in some capacity, maybe not this one, but, future ones where we can put some video out there. Folks can kind of get into it a little bit. You see this going on every television show every day. This is how people are broadcasting. I know it's pretty good stuff.
Chief, we really appreciate your feedback on the podcast, and that's our intent, is to get people from across the spectrum to talk about their story and share their experiences and give insight into new programs and get guys like you on here to talk about higher level programs. So we really appreciate the feedback, and we really appreciate you coming on. So could you tell us about your career so far in the Air Force? So how'd you land the job of Career Field Manager?
Yes. So Well, I think it's like anything. It's like a ladder. If we're gonna keep this fire centric. We'll just start with the rungs of the ladder. I started out way back at Nellis Air Force Base in 1992, and I bounced back and forth from several locations, picking up a little piece of knowledge along the way at several different locations. I really liked the change of scenery on a regular basis and some of the unique things. And there was a batch, maybe 9-10 deployments in there where, I was, you were being thrown into these unknown scenarios and just trying to make it work. I just really, really felt like that I was doing some good for, I was part of the greater good. It's one of the best jobs in the world. It's easy for me to say that because looking back, when I first came in, I signed up both feet in to be a cook in the Air Force. I was all in. I mean, I wanted to be a cook so bad. Jesus fed the masses, and that's what I was going to do in the military, and that's what I told everybody as I walked out. I went to basic. I wrote cook on the paper. They said, you have to put more than just cook on the paper. I said, okay, well, what else you got? And I went through all the jobs, and I thought I was signing up for to be like a fire alarm maintenance guy because it said fire protection apprentice. I thought I was going to be installing fire alarms, and I was like, okay, I'll put that on the paper. At the time, they were closing Chanute Air Force Base, and they were mad rushing a bunch of folks through there so that they could levy the gap that was going to take to open up Goodfellow. So if you remotely had fire on the paper, you were going that way. So I went to it. I did the best I could. I kind of enjoyed it. I didn't like some of the search house stuff and bleeding knees and all that other stuff, but we pushed through. And got to my first base, went on a call, put out a car fire. We headed back to the chow hall because back then we were on DFAC. I'm sorry, I should say it the right way, but we were on meal cards, so we had to bring the trucks to the DFAC, which has since changed. We've changed that in the AFIs over the years. We went in. I was sitting there smelling like smoke and had just done something really awesome. And there was another member who was the short order cook, was behind the line. We were standing there looking at each other, same stripes, same everything. And he asked me how I wanted my eggs. And I'm not going to badmouth you. That's a calling unto itself. But I really felt like a higher power had intervened. And that's just what it just took off from there. I said, look what I was just doing. And I could have been doing that. And I'm not bad-mouthing that career field. I'm just telling you that I felt like, wow, I really, really feel like I fit into this more than I do that. So we went in the back and forth over the years, back to every assignment. I had doubled up on a lot of assignments. I was at Nellis twice, Ramstein twice, McGuire or Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst twice. And I kept going back. And so I got the reputation that I had to keep going back and fixing all the things I broke the first time. So, and then I was like, okay, so I became this thing where I thought, okay, I'm going to go to every base twice and that'll be the end of it. Well, kind of broke the mold when I made chief. So I did a short stint over in the desert as the first chief master back into Al Udeid. That's where I met you two awesome senior NCOs, right? And as I recall, both of you were NCOs at the time, right? When we would go and play our death ball in the gym, dodgeball on Saturdays, we made it a thing, and it was good times. And so I got that first chief gig under my belt, and then I headed to Dover Air Force Base for a couple years as the fire chief there, and then I had interviewed for the career field manager job previously. They took folks that were more qualified, more ready, had better perspective than me. And then finally, when I was interviewing, they said, hey, we don't know where you're going, but you're not going to stay at Dover. So that was what the interview said. And so then I was the PACAF fire chief for a while. I did a lot of war planning stuff. I gained a lot of perspective on the higher level stuff. And I said, okay, now we've groomed you. Now you're ready. You have hit basically all the rungs on the ladder, from firefighter to assistant chief to NCOIC of the dispatch center to assistant chief for training, deputy fire chief. So I've hit every rung along the way, readiness guru, whatever you want to say. And so that's really what it boiled down to, is hitting all those rungs on the way. I never did any special duty assignment. I encourage folks to go do special duty, but I try to tell folks that, you can still you can go all the way in this career field and not have to go out and do a special duty. Sometimes we're trying to chase after things, but also I think that that there is some goodness in that, where you get some breadth of experience, some leadership experience outside the career field, going to be a first sergeant, going to be an NCO, commandant, or instructor, things of that nature. There's a lot of opportunity out there. So, I just think it's a really cool thing that, that the Air Force provides all this. But, my love for being an Air Force firefighter it started from the beginning. I had opportunities to leave, and I chose to stay. And I'll choose to stay all day, and twice on Sundays. I really, I get such a kick out of it. They're paying us to train and to go and save lives. I mean, that's essentially what they're asking us to do. They train us every day. We go into work. My number one rule as an assistant chief was always come to work. Make sure you're ready to rock and roll. And, don't come in here all beat up. Don't be coming in here all like, oh, we just overdid it the night before. Be ready to work when you come in, when you walk through those doors, and we'll get after it. So train hard. I'm also one to play hard. You got to have fun too. So it's been a heck of a ride. And I would encourage anybody who wants to be the career field manager. It's within your purview. You can do it if you set your mind to it. Of course, timing goes into that a little bit, depends on where you hit with your assignments and stuff. But it's a very, very rewarding job. I will tell you, like, I get to see, not lately because of the things that are going on in society, but I get to see on a regular basis. I get to go out and see all the good that so many people are doing across the Air Force. In this job, you travel probably 2 to 3 times per month. Up until recently, we were traveling about 2 to 3 times a month. I'd go out to different installations. I talk to the total force, which is very important to me. I think that we've done really good things on robusting up our relationships with the Guard and Reserve. Fantastic stuff's being going on right now.
So how much time do you have left in the position as career field manager, and what are some of your top priorities that you would like to share with the force that you want to accomplish before you leave?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you only get so much time in the thing, and I think I told you I came in 92. So you do the math, right? I'm coming up on 20, just finishing up 28 years. I've been in this job. We're closing in on probably a year since it was announced. And so what that translates to is I got 2 more years left, right? I'm not getting a high-year extension, a waiver or anything like that. I'm going to try to do the full 30 years. I got a number of things I want to try to get after, right? We've got everything. We have so much on the table right now of what we're working on. If I remember everything from EMS service delivery, in other words, doing transport. There's an effort right now to own that mission. We're working closely with it. We meet at least once a week on that. If I'm going with my priorities, I've got to change the mentality. The number one thing is readiness. Okay, so and everybody says, what's my top 3 priorities? And I'll always say it's readiness, and the third thing, most importantly, is readiness, right? So we have to be ready to do whatever it is that we've got to do when the time comes. And what I mean by that is, the time to get ready for something isn't when the stuff kicks off. You have to be ready beforehand. So what I will tell you is, we'll just go with the JSLS suit, right? So J Fire, right? Everybody thinks they're just going to throw on one of these suits, throw on their bunkers, and be able to go and operate in those kind of environments. And I'm here to tell you that I've been to the Silver Flag sites, and I've watched these guys after one rotation, literally they're shot. And I'm saying, hold on, you don't have any stamina built up in this suit. You've got to do more. So we have to do more things when it comes to readiness. Other things I've challenged the schoolhouse with is to try and start looking at, from the basic set. How do we look at readiness from the standpoint? we go through a tech school and we don't have any type of readiness training built into to our core course. So we're looking at different things like that. We're trying to build some line items to go into our career field education training plan. I'm really excited about what we can do to change the way we look at readiness. And I'm not just talking about, for military, I'm talking about for civilians too. No basis of sanctuary now, if you can go back and take a look at the National Defense Strategy. And so we have to make sure that those folks are going to be ready, and what's that going to look like, in and on our installations around the world. So, that's what I want to do, is to promote readiness within. When I go back to EMS, my vision for EMS is all firefighters will be EMTs. And, that's going to be the norm. The standard is going to be, you go to tech school and you go and get your EMT. Now, you're probably saying, Chief, how are you going to do that in 2 years? Well, what I'm going to try to do is put things into motion so it gets done. Maybe I don't get to sit there and hold up the trophy that I pushed it across the line, but I'm certainly not fighting it. And I'm certainly trying to do things to advocate. We want to do it smart. We want to do it right. We want to make sure that we're organized, trained, and equipped. And, that we have the funds and the flow, the manpower and the things that we need in order to do it right. Right. So I don't want to start off in a place where we're going to have to figure this all out. So where I'm going with that is that we want to do it the right way. We want to do it the smart way. And we've got to, like I said, resource train, the right way, meaning we have to find a way we've got to find days to expand the classes down at Goodfellow in order to get the EMT, and to front load EMTs going through the tech school. One way we've already tried to attempt this, and this is something that's pretty huge. I mean, you can go back and look at your history on, what ASVAB score did you need to come through when you came through the Air Force as a firefighter?
I think it was like 36.
Yeah,
like
36, 37. And it was 37. And, so we had not looked at that since the 1970s on what it took to be a firefighter. And we know that we had levied so many more skills upon us as we went through. When I talked about earlier that I was in for 17, whatever it was in the Air Force 92, I went through Chanute. That was a 7-week course. These folks go to school for 4.5 months now to learn this trade that we're in. And you're going to tell me that the stuff that they're learning is commensurate with what, we probably just pulled lines off the trucks and put the wet stuff on the red stuff? Well, I'd have to beg to differ with that. And some of the tests that we take, the EMT, the EMR, those have gotten a little bit more difficult. And we've added hazmat technician, and we've added all these other things onto the list of and litany of things that we do. We hear it all the time: jack of all trades, master of none. But we have a lot of stuff under our umbrella. So, and you could take this however you want it, but we needed to put a brighter bulb. We had to recruit brighter bulbs into the system. So we went and we did a study. We worked with AFPC and the resource team down there. They came up with some things that we could stomach. And so we moved our score, our general aptitude score, to 58. They gave me a mechanical score that I can consider later, but we want to make sure that we don't overcorrect rather than undercorrect. So we'll add that in subsequent years, maybe, if it's required, if we're not getting the right thing. I will say that I get called on it a lot. Like, why are you going to reduce the amount of folks being able to come in? Well, we are bringing in more folks that we believe will be able to pass the tests and pass the curriculum. So you're bringing in the right candidates opposed to just the mass candidates that you will eventually lose. So there's two trains of thought there. And I would dare say that that's been the first thing that we put in place to start recruiting classes. The general aptitude score for EMTs in the Air Force in the SG is 50. And so that was the basis that's how we got to some of that baseline stuff.
Well, Chief, I really appreciate you sharing all those priorities, and you hit on a few things that we're going to bring up throughout our discussion here. So as I said before we started this, we went to Facebook and we polled everybody to see who had questions. We ended up getting about 13 questions. Some of them we won't ask, some of them we will. It depends on how much time. I know your time is valuable, but I have 7 down here that we'll go through. Hopefully we can make it through. So the first one is on EMS. So it's on the mind of a lot of firefighters, and we actually had 2 questions. about the future of EMS. The first one, Jordan Herrick asks, being an active duty firefighter, how can I obtain my paramedic license? Will it be supported? Firefighter medics are the future. We're on scene first and sometimes for 10 to 20 minutes awaiting ALS backup. Early intervention would be nice to provide considering most of our calls are medical.
So that's a good question. So would it be supported? It depends on who that fire chief is and where they're stationed at, right? So that his situation may be unique. I guess I would have to guess that he would be at some place that's sort of remote, right? A lot of our bases, are butted up right against the city where we can get ALS transport in through contract services and stuff. So it really depends on what that local fire chief's willing to support. Would I support it? Yeah, if you wanted to go out and get it, I'm not going to pay for it for you to go, but I'll certainly provide you the avenues or instances. If you want to go downtown, take the class, okay. Where are we at on staffing? I'd cut the guy, free. Now, here's the thing, Jordan. Don't tell your fire chief I said that I would let you go, so he has to let you go. You see, it's based upon the priorities of, that's really what it boils down to, is that if that's a priority for that department, I'm sure that they would support it in some way. We are looking into the advanced EMT in some locations, and we're having meetings about that. But we have to make sure that our curriculum lines up with the appropriate. It lines up appropriate with the national standards. Otherwise, our certifications aren't going to count for much if we don't align them, legally and in accordance with what's out there. So,
Eric Barlow had another question on EMS. It was in regards to TCCC or Tactical Casualty Combat Care. Is Air Force FES working with the medical community to get more guidance on TCCC training, specifically in regards to the level of training firefighters need? So the medical community apparently getting trained on this. Do firefighters also need to get formally trained in some capacity?
So this is what I'm working on right now. So I am working with a major in the SG community. This is coming out in drips and drabs. It's not like it's flying off the shelf, right? There's different levels of TCCC, and we need to find out what level that we're going to fall into appropriately, right? So are we going to be combat medics? Are we going to be, so there's a different, about 4 different levels in there, and we need to see where we're going to fall into what category. I would tell you that I would see us being needing a higher level of care so that it's commensurate with EMT. I will also tell you that I'm working with them because this never made sense to me, and maybe it made sense for some of you. Maybe it didn't make sense for some of you. But I will tell you that every time I tried to PCS from a base, they asked me for my self-aid and buddy care certificate. And I said, I'm an EMT. And they'd say, well, where's your self-aid and buddy care certificate? I'm an EMT. Do we need to keep, we're in a real bad circle here right now. You're not letting me leave, and I'm an EMT, and where's your self-aid and buddy care certificate? So you see where I'm going with that. So what I'm working with the medics right now is to get credit for us, TCCC, to come with the EMT. In other words, you take the EMT and say, we got to button one more button to the collar so that, that's your sling and swath, or you see where I'm going with that, right? So
yeah, I understand,
we grab a belt and we use the belt to make a sling. Whatever those additional skills are that are there, let's just dump them into the EMT curriculum and be done with it. So your EMT counts for TCCC, and you're not going through two things of curriculum as opposed to the one. It just makes it more palatable to me.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that approach. It's a little different, maybe similar to self-aid buddy care in some respects, but there with the, I guess, the growing concern of active shooter and mass casualty, do you think that it's appropriate that maybe we get trained formally in a separate way than when we get trained for EMT, or do we just simply integrate that into our EMT classes?
So I will tell you that Chief Lanning, he's working on that pretty diligently right now with the cop community. When you're talking about rescue task force and active shooter and stuff like that, I'm looking forward to what policies and programs are generated out of that working group so that we can support those. I will tell you that there probably will be some kind of medical requirements that come out of it, but we're definitely going to have to incorporate that into, I think what they've said so far from the meetings and from the notes that I've been reading is that it's going to be local-based training. You're going to have to get, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's local based training. You got to get everybody on the same sheet of music at that installation doing what you're supposed to do. And I could write a policy up at the Air Force level and say, you're going to do this. And then it might make no sense by the time it gets down to the base. Me and Chief Wagner can sit up here and make policy all day long. But what you don't want to do is make policy that handcuffs folks at the local installations to do it, to give the right product that they need to their communities. So I'm not afraid of putting policy out, but what I am is hesitant to do it if it's going to limit the capabilities on the ground to help the folks that are out there. In other words, sometimes too much policy, too much regulation is a bad thing. In other words, it could definitely do something. And by God, if I do anything that would ever interrupt us from saving a life, that would be more than I could handle, I think, because, I just wouldn't want to do anything like that. So really what we need to do is make sure that those bases are out there and they have a good working relationship with everybody, and they understand command and control, and they understand that nobody's just trying to be in charge of the incidents and stuff. It's a conglomerate of all those folks on that base that make that installation run every day. It's the people who are still there when the gates lock after 4 o'clock, when flying goes down. It's those people there that are making it happen. So pretty exciting as we move forward with that. I would expect to see something in the coming year on, something more formal from a policy standpoint on where we reside. And then I would encourage all fire departments, to keep those great relationships that we have with our security forces members and the medics that are responding today, to make sure that at the drop of a pin or the drop of a hat or whatever you want to say, we're ready to go, and we're ready to take care of those folks on that installation.
Well, let's shift gears for just a second. This one's actually coming straight from me. I posted it as a question on the Facebook to enter in the contest, fair game like everyone else, but want to know, many of our stateside departments have adjusted to working a 48-hour shift or some sort of non-24-hour shift schedule. Some across the force maybe even operating at less than 72 hours per week. I'm not really sure about that one. But some say, when you look at the studies in the municipal departments and some of the other studies that have gone on out there, that it's really torture on the body and the mind and sleep and health. And I know Matt disagrees with me on this one. He's only worked 24 hours in his
24's for life
in his experience, but I've worked something different, and I can tell you it does affect my sleep a lot different. So I can imagine people have different reactions to the different shift schedules that are out there, both for on duty and off duty consideration. So is there any appetite for looking at kind of adjusting or at least just looking into the standard shift schedule across the force to see if that needs adjusting?
So this is one that I don't mind answering. This will be Andy Morris's opinion, though. Okay, so a lot of this is tied to pay. Okay, we looked at this a long time ago with the 56-hour work weeks and stuff like that. I mean, that was all, we went down that road, and then we realized, hey, there's a different pay scale for civilians and things of that nature. To compensate for some of that, some fire chiefs have said, hey, I want to change to a different schedule. If you're asking me if there's an active thing to look at reducing the hours that we work on a regular basis, there is not currently any program out there that is looking to reduce the amount of hours. Now, at the local level, again, going back, you know what works and what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. So I've been fortunate to work several different schedules over the years. Okay, we used to work the 7-group system at McGuire Air Force Base. I've worked 48s. I've worked 2 on, 2 off. I've worked, and in my own departments, I've initiated, this 3 on 3 is a 3 on 3 off or whatever we switched to at the time. I've heard it said many different ways in that, the 24s, that's a manager's schedule, and 72s and the 48s, that's a firefighter schedule, right? So yeah, we get it, but there has to be a give and take between the managers and the and the firefighters. In other words, I think I'm all in support of a schedule that the firefighters like, as long as the firefighters are getting done what they need to get done. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have to do their part. If they're not, if they're unconcerned with training and making sure that they're ready to go, and okay, if I take a day off here, I get 10 days off, and if they're worried about the latter, which they might be, that's where you run into trouble, and you're not able to course correct or basically obtain the things that you need to in order to effectively manage that fire department, right? So you got the squadrons calling down, hey, this guy's got to go for your analysis. Oh yeah, he'll be back in 6 weeks. That sort of thing. That they don't understand that, so it can get a little bit dicey there, if you know what I mean. So
right, and I know there's bases out there that have worked it out. Nellis, for example, I know has worked out something to where they have their firefighter come in halfway between their time off and email whoever their supervisor saying, hey, I've been to work. Okay, now I got to go back home or whatever, because you can't have 4 days off. Yeah. Well, I'm guessing local commanders or unit level commanders have to sign off on stuff like that.
Yeah. So and we do have there's 96 hours and there's different things that are out there, right? So, but I think all in all, you're going to pick a schedule that works for your department. I mean, from a manager's perspective, from a fire chief's perspective, I'm going to use a schedule that works. Now, I will tell you that as that scheduler, and you can ask any of the firefighters that work for me, I had another schedule. It left some of the members, meaning the folks that I'd already negotiated with, on their schedules. And then I had a schedule that put them back on 24s. So when stuff looked like it was going off the cliff, I would go, hey guys, here's your new work schedule. And I would say, everybody see that? And they're like, whoa, chief, what are you doing here to us? And I go, hey, listen, I got to do something. So help me out. And next thing you know, training's caught up. Everything's good. Floors are clean. It's all good in the hood, right? So,
yeah, and I know the civilian aspect is a huge consideration, paying benefits, and none of us are looking to take that away from anybody. That's people's livelihoods. I think some looking kind of long range attrition, as the force kind of rolls over into new cycles. It would have to obviously be a super long thought out process to change it over when we're talking the civilian workforce as well. And there's definitely benefits to having all your members on one shift. So like you were talking about, if you split them up and do all this weird stuff, it gets complicated. And then you've got 14 shifts going on and you don't know who's here one day.
Yeah, Ben. So it's a good point. I don't want to lose synergy in a department anytime I'm in a department, right? Because when I go out, and I'll be honest with you, and you can ask anybody who I've ever worked for, or whoever's worked for me, or I've worked with, they when I come out, I see a badge, and that badge means you're a firefighter, right? And so we're all firefighters together. And I never like to see the rift between the military and civilian. I never like to see some of those things in the department. And the best departments I ever worked in is you would come in and everybody's on board. Everybody's helping one another. And, those seamless type departments where everybody's in it together. And, we have so much to gain. Military members have so much to gain from our civilian workforce. They have knowledge, they have experience. A lot of times they have part-time jobs, or they're doing this on a regular basis outside the gates. And, it would behoove us to work and have a great relationship with the civilian counterparts, in that, we're only going to benefit from it in the long run. So I do get frustrated, I will say, when I hear that, oh, we're not working so well together and things like that. And it's clear when you walk into an apartment, you can tell those rifts. I can walk into an apartment within 10 minutes and know that there's a rift in that department or not. And I always appreciate the departments that are working together, that are investing in our airmen to make sure, that they're ready to go. Readiness number one is that they're ready to go. You can go into some departments, and I'll probably get kicked in the teeth for this later, but you go into some departments and all the civilians got all the great positions on the trucks. Sometimes, I mean, that may go on in that department. And then how does that GI, right? How do they compensate for that when when rubber meets the road, and now they're doing it under attack, or they're getting blown up and shit's on fire everywhere, right? How are they supposed to adequately be in charge of that in some capacity? So we gotta make sure that we're taking care of both sides of the fence, right? Everybody's getting love and everybody's working together, and that's the kind of the vision I have, is to make sure that we're doing things. I'll tell you, everything that I'm working on will have a civilian flavor to it right now. We're doing the STRT, and we really haven't launched this publicly, but I'm sure somebody will listen to this, and we're trying to come up with a civilian training record. Right now, they capture all their stuffs in some kind of in a folder. It's kind of all over the place depending on where you go. And I would like to use the backbone of what we're using in the CFETP, not the exact stuff, right? But some of that stuff should be able to translate over easily to a civilian training record. So and I'll tell you that there is a flavor for it, and the civilians are asking for that kind of stuff. When I originally had started that senior NCO call, that's not like this. You guys are all professionals doing this, but I get a little telecom line, and I try to get everybody on it, and I try to talk about different issues, every couple months, And the idea behind that was I wanted to do something for the senior NCOs. I wanted to talk directly to the senior NCOs. Well, guess what? So people found out about that I was trying to mentor, doing some kind of fire leadership mentorship for just the senior NCOs. Well, guess who got in an uproar? Everybody. Yeah, everybody said, wait a minute, what about us? What about our professional development? What about you mentoring us? And I said, you know what? That's a good point. So the senior NCO all-call morphed directly into a senior fire leadership mentorship type thing where everybody's on board. And it makes sense. It goes back to my point that everybody's getting the same amount of love. And, we all learn. I'm learning every day something new. It's amazing.
I think the grass is always greener on the other side, right? So there's something good and there's something bad with either type of schedule or all the different types of schedule. There's a good argument that 24s are bad for your health and all this stuff. We could find something wrong with 48s and 4872s and all this different stuff. But I keep it moving so that we allow everybody to have an opportunity for their question to be asked. This next one comes from, it's a good dispatch related question. Miles Payton, in regards to the ACEs and computer systems, he asks, what is the plan for enterprise-wide E911? Aging computer systems and software require heavy maintenance and replacement after 5 years. What plan, if any, do we have for ACES FD replacement? Are we looking in long-term sustainment contracts for these enterprise-wide systems? Are we keeping the burden to the local ASJs? Finally, what are we looking into when it comes to removing dispatch as an extra duty for firefighters?
I'll just tell you what we're looking into right now with dispatch, okay? Essentially, we understand there is this huge bill that goes along with dispatch in different capacity. There's several different systems in there that need to be maintained and updated. Everything from Monaco to other fire alarm type of fire alarm communication systems in there. I will tell you that we are working on looking right now whether to stick with ACES FD or FES IMS as opposed to a COTS product, something off the shelf that's out there. We have that going on right now. That's an active thing that our contractors and Mr. Robin Shaw is working from AFCEC. They're trying to put some stuff together for that. I will tell you that we have another working group that probably a lot of people don't know about is regionalization. CMSgt Jeffrey Wilson's working on regionalization with a couple other folks and trying to figure out how we can regionalize dispatch. In other words, only have a dispatch in certain locations and geographical areas of the department so that everybody won't have their own dispatch. And then finally, we're looking to divest that. So if there's any takers out there that might be listening to this, we're willing to try and hand this baby off to somebody and get out of the game completely. We probably still keep our telecommunicator 1s and 2s just so if people can answer the phones in some capacity. We'll probably have to look at a rewrite on that in general, but so we have something to do with dispatch because I don't think we're going to lose that in a deployed environment, right? We're still going to have to answer the mail on that. I don't think you're going to just see dispatchers on a deployment UTC that goes out and that's married up with the department. So we're still going to have to answer their calls downrange. So that's a basic nutshell. I know there's infrastructure problems. Yes, that's going to have to be fought locally. I know that that some of the communities have divorced themselves with that, meaning that they're not supported as well as they once were, and we're having a fight for contracts to maintain that stuff. So yes, there is stuff being looked at. I know that IMSC was looking into some other things too, to see what it's going to cost to, either support the whole enchilada or how we can maintain them in the future. But it's a great question. I mean, there's just so much going on, and he asked like almost every question to every aspect of what's going on. So,
Chief, our next question comes from Scott Carter. It's about our vehicle fleet. His question is, with an aging fleet in mind, the Striker was the answer to the P19, P23, and the P26 was supposed to phase out the P18. What is the current status of our vehicle fleet, and where are we headed as a career field? Kind of what's on the horizon with our new vehicles?
So yeah, that's a good question. I mean, where are we headed? I will tell you that right now we're headed on the path that we're on. We're going to be replacing these trucks as they come up due for replenishment. The process has changed a little bit over the years. You all know that we used to have a vehicle replacement schedule, and we really don't have that anymore. So it's basically boils down to when a truck is broke, it's broke, and we replace it. It goes into the replacement mix. The 441st runs all that out of there. Mr. Fred Tarrin down at AFCEC, he is our POC for all vehicle issues. I'll tell you, UHP's gotten a lot of bad press here and there, and I'm going to put a plug in for it. All right, so I don't think we have a UHP problem. I think we have a training problem. In that is that we're not trained appropriately with the UHP. I've watched these trucks do some pretty amazing things on some of the videos. I mean, I watched them blow aircraft fires out. I mean, essentially, it's pretty amazing. I've watched them things throw water up to 450 feet. I don't know why you'd be putting water 450 feet away from an aircraft fire, but so where I'm going is, you're not going to be setting these things up into the wind. You're going to be setting these up on actual fires. It's going to, it's not going to freeze like into this mist that everybody that says it is to. I've taken those trucks out and put them to the test. I waited till the coldest day of the year, and then I brought my whole fire department out there, and I said, let's learn how to use this stuff. Let's work it, right? And I will tell you that there are some limitations, but it's not nothing. It is nothing that you cannot train on to get more proficient with. In other words, this stuff will work. I hear bad stuff about the rivs all the time, but I've seen people, put them into different, applications where, people would love to have one of those to knock it down a tent fire in a camp somewhere and stuff. So they're all tools that we can use, but if you don't use, it's just like anything. If you don't use the tool the right way, it's not going to work for you. So I see that our fleet's going to stick to UHP for at least the near future. And we'll reevaluate as we come. I will tell you, Chief Wagner's reached out to all the bases that have the JP8 fire pits, and he's asked them to, hey, can you put some videos together that we can share to the field on just how great this stuff actually works, and that so we can get an idea out there.
The meaning of the RIV, rapid intervention, it's not supposed to take place if you're major crash vehicles. It's supposed to rapidly intervene,
augment
for any kind of fire. Or augment, whatever you want to say, so it has its, like you said, it's a tool and it has its purpose. You don't sit there. You go in, knock down your major crash vehicles, come and take care of the rest of the job. I mean, I think that's the idea, anyways. It's a rapid intervention vehicle. It's literally in the name. So
right.
It has its application, but it's not the big guys. So.
They just got done doing, we just got them, air transportable and stuff like that. So you're going to see them. I mean, they're going to be around for a little bit. They're not going anywhere. But as far as going in and saying, okay, we're throwing out all the UHP, that's not happening. Couldn't happen today, and it won't happen for the next, foreseeable future, because it takes a while to turn that mechanism on and off. And today it's on, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So,
well, the science says that it's a good thing too. So.
Yeah. And in water conservation and I mean, it can go into a ton of different things, right? If you're still going in and dumping your entire payload on an aircraft, you might want to reassess on how you're putting fires out. Like it's just, we need to do a better job of assessing, doing scene size up, right? I've seen departments come in, modulate 2 times around it, set up on the thing, and they got no water left in the truck. And you're sitting there going, okay, what was your thought process here? Did you not think you were going to have to go and start fighting these ground fires, or, there's not going to be any cleanup operations? You knocked it out. There was nothing inside that you had to worry about. You just knocked the whole thing down outside. So, we just need to be smart about what we're doing, and we need to train. I'll tell you, man, I've taken this. I take my guys out every day. The damn trucks have booster heaters on them. I take them out, and when it's cold, and they're like, "Why are we going out, Sergeant Morris?" And I'm like, "Because you need to know how to do this stuff in the cold. You need to know how to do this in the heat. You need to know how to do this in the middle of the night when you woke up. You need to be ready all the time." And so that's been my, I guess, be ready, right?
Great advice, Chief. Our next question comes from Omar Ortiz. He asks, what is the status of getting Center for Public Safety Excellence, or CPSE, credentials paid for by Air Force School or credentialing opportunities online?
So, Omar, that's a great question. That is a fantastic question. So that's something that my predecessors, the last 3 career field managers, have worked on, and I continue to work on it myself. I will tell you, it's not at I got other things that are going on in between, but for sure, I've not forgotten about it. And so what I'll give you on that is this. They need a test. That's what the COOLS program needs. They need a test that qualifies everything at the end. And although we take several tests along the way, Fire Officer 4, you go down the line, there's no one final test. And that's what they're looking for. Currently, we have a couple of folks working on what that's going to look like. So they're going to address the Air Force COOLS program one more time and say, can we just have a 4-question essay, like a 4-question essay test that they have to write? It's kind of like a theoretical question type that will be graded at the end that would count as a test. And then that would incorporate, that would meet the needs of what they need in order to pay for the Air Force COOLS program. So we are still working on it. I would expect to hear something soon. I've not heard anything recently on it, but it is something that we're still working on. And so it's not dead in the water. So what I will say is, yes, we're still looking into that. We are working closely with Air Force COOLS program right now in order to find a final test that we can administer to folks so that it will count for the qualifications. And then we will meet the intent of the Air Force COOLS program. And I suspect that they'll allow us to test out and utilize the program accordingly.
Chief, if I could ask a follow-up question on that. The fire officer certifications that we earn and the instructor and all those are good on the outside. And we require those to step through our career and everything like that. What would be the thought of trying to integrate the credentialing into the kind of paid for by the government system, just like we would host a fire officer class or anything else like that, sending folks to, not maybe sending them, but paying for them to get their credentialing if we work that into a requirement to hold certain positions?
The credentialing piece it's kind of different. So it depends on what kind of credentialing you're talking about. Like you can get credentialed through CPSE for different levels. Like I have my CFO, and then they had other levels of service there, levels of training that you can.
So they have fire officer and they have chief training officer, chief EMS officer, a couple of those different levels.
Yeah. So we don't have that incorporated into our system right now. But what we do have is Air Force credentialing that we're still trying to take a look at. That has kind of lost some legs along the way. I don't know that everybody's using that program as effectively as we wanted to. You know about the credentialing program that the Air Force has, right? For incident commander, staging officer, all that good stuff. So we definitely need to take another look at that. And, that's a great question. It's definitely something that's on the list of what are we going to do with these credentials and things of that nature.
All right. Well, let's get on to the next question. This one's from Thomas Stewart, and it's regarding career field manning and retention. This is something Matt and I heard you talk about in the superintendent course a few months back, so I'm excited to hear you talk about it on a little wider platform here. What are the forecasts in regard to retaining Air Force firefighters? How are we doing? Are we losing more active duty members in the airmen and NCO category than we normally would?
So, yeah, that's a good question. I will tell you right now that as far as our staffing is concerned, we are exceptional to the point where we have the ability to shed a lot of folks from the other ranks that we have. Right now, we are hurting in the capacity of folks flowing through our schoolhouse. We are doing better. The numbers are up. The schoolhouse is doing a great job on producing quality airmen to the field. Currently, they're not getting enough of them out to the field. And so things like the ASVAB score that we're changing, recruiting a person that can come in and probably pass the curriculum a little bit easier. These are some of the things that we're doing to attack that. I will tell you right now, if you're a tech sergeant and you're in fire protection, I've said it in the past. I've said it to a larger audience. That get in the car, I'll drive you to the gate myself, because we have way too many tech sergeants in fire protection right now. To the point where they've given me some tertiary numbers of what we could shed, and I've only allowed less than half of that stuff to be available for DSD and stuff. I still have to think about the career field as a whole. I would tell you that there's some additional things that I wasn't speaking about 2 months ago or 3 months ago when we had all met. We've got a different situation on our hands today, in that we don't know what's going to happen with things like basic training, and we don't know if things are going to happen, due to COVID response, whether we're going to keep the schoolhouse open for many more days. In other words, are we just going to graduate those folks and then we're going to shut stuff down for a little bit, wait till this passes? And so we are looking into all of that. And I will tell you right now, if you're floating a DSD my way, or not DSD, well, yeah, it could be a DSD, could be a Palace Chase application to go in the Guard Reserve. I'll tell you right now, I'm sitting on those for just a little bit, because we're going to have to make the determination. If they shut the doors and we have nobody coming in, maybe we just have a higher ranked Air Force for a little bit, but at least we have enough people to go and get out there and get after the missions that we're supporting across the world. So there has been some consideration. I'm not going to sit here and say that, that stop loss hasn't come off of anybody's lips. There's a lot of different things going on right now. So, that's not sure if I should have shared that, but whatever. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. We're having to figure out what the effects of this COVID response and this COVID pandemic has really caused us as a whole. I will say that we have departments right now running ILS, running CLS. We got different departments doing all kinds of different things right now to get after this. We have departments that have infected members with COVID. We have folks that are in quarantine. We've had to resort to going to different shifts. We've used TLFs, different facilities to get that separation for folks so that they can respond. It's a very, very crazy time. We used to talk about it all the time, kind of joke around about these things called the COOP plan back in the day. And the COOP plan was supposed to be this continuation of operations that we're supposed to have if something went down. Well, I would tell you that I wrote a lot of those plans in those departments that I were in, and I never considered something to this effect, right? How this has hit us, right? I figured, everybody got sick, they're gone, went home for a week. We keep the guys on for a week. No, this thing is progressive, and it catches, and you don't know if the person has it. And so you have to keep them kind of away. And there's these quarantine practices that are being put all over everybody. I will tell you that we're not messing around on the readiness training that's out there. You will go to readiness training, but you'll be quarantined 14 days to get all your deployment training up. But we're not messing around when it comes to readiness. You're still going to get the training that you need to support the operations all over the world. I will tell you that it's I hear uncertain times all the time, but I will say what I'm seeing from the career field and how everybody's resiliency and how people are working through this. It's just it really gives me a lot of hope. I just get really, I don't know what the word is for it, but I'm really I know it's hard to be comfortable in these times, but I'm comfortable knowing that, all these folks are out there getting after it and doing the right things. And, they're using their training and they're looking at with the problem sets they're being faced with, and they're coming up with solutions every day all over the place. And we've got places to share that information. Chief Wagner and AFCEC, they've hung a page down there. You could dump all your plans and what you're doing. We've got plans from all over walks, overseas, everywhere. People are just, it's a community that's come together thinking through all these things. So, we are, it's pretty intense. It's pretty awesome. Just watching all this sense of community come back. And then, and when we say we're all in it together, I really feel like people mean that, genuinely mean it when they say that now. So,
Chief, I can say from our perspective, or from my perspective here at Langley, it almost feels, and I don't want to say this because I haven't necessarily been to war like a Pearl Harbor kind of event, but it has a different feel to it in the sense that the gears have engaged and people are taking it very seriously. And when circumstances get to this level, it's really impressive to see how creative and how focused people can get. I'm talking from the wing leadership all the way down to the unit level leadership, and in the fire department too. Like there's a lot of smart people in the department, and they got serious real quick and put policies into place, and we took it seriously. And it was an impressive thing to kind of be a part of, and we're still kind of dealing with it now and moving through it. But even from the higher levels and all the way down to the unit levels, it was impressive to see how we responded.
Yeah, and we're still in this, and we're going to continue through it. It's just it's a different kind of thing. My jaw hit the floor when I found out my 5 kids weren't going to school for the rest of the year. I was like, whoa, what's this all about? This is a different kind of thing. So, I am doing a lot of teleworking because of where we're being required to do the teleworking. But also, as in too, unless I have a high side or a classified type brief, or I have to go take care of, that's what will lead me into work. But other than that, we're kind of just in this together. So it's kind of fun, listening to all the meetings that I'm in on a regular basis and hearing all the kids and the dogs and the pots and pans banging around in the background. And, people are just living their lives, but we're still getting after it. I mean, stuff is still getting done, even from afar. And, I miss the handshakes. I miss the hugs, from the community. I've been told I'm a hugger, I guess, in some capacity, but right now it's not the time for it. So we'll keep doing it. And I think Chief Wagner put out there that I copyrighted or trademarked the word "wash your hands." So after this sickness I had, I did get tested false negative. No, I'm not going to say that. I was tested negative for the coronavirus, but I've never been sick like this. So I will tell you that, I'm questioning the test results, if you will. But anyway, we pushed through it, and every day we're getting a little bit better.
Chief, the last question comes from Ben Sudith. He says, do you plan on bringing back the P2? If so, can I unretire and drive it?
So I will tell you there, you're going to have to fight me for that one, because if I did bring it back, I would definitely want to drive it. We had to learn how to start those things in the dark. They used to blindfold us and say, okay, figure it out. And probably could still start it up and drive it with the best of them. But how about we'll trade off shifts. You drive it one shift and then I'll drive it the next. Missed that truck. But no, there's no plans to bring back the P2, but I used to love that beast.
Well, Chief, we really appreciate your time today, and thanks so much for asking all these questions. It's awesome to get perspective from really the highest level of Air Force fire protection, and I know that there'll be a lot of value added to a lot of guys out there. So do you have any final thoughts before we finish up?
What I would ask from every firefighter that's coming into the service today, and I'm talking about the lowest, like the guy who may not even have a stripe on his shoulder, which I think a lot of them just ought to have it automatically because they've been in there long enough. Start writing down the things that didn't make sense to you. Write it on the paper and keep it in a book in your pocket. And everything that doesn't make sense along the way, you will have an opportunity one day, hopefully, to be able to fix those. We talked about retention a little while ago. We have no problem with retention. Once people see what this is all about and what they're about, we have no problem keeping them. So we just got to get enough folks in the door, and they don't want to go anywhere. They want to stay. Retention is great. And I'll tell you, as you work through things and you keep going back to that list, and I'll tell you, that's what I kind of did, was I made a list of everything that didn't make sense to me along the way. And that's what I'm trying to fix today. To give you an example of that, when I got to my first assignment, they said, here, go climb on that truck. You're going to be a firefighter today. Now, I'd never responded to a call in my life, and I didn't know what I was going to look like or how I was going to do. But that's just how we've done business in the past. We've initiated, and you talked about it on one of your programs, the Rookie Book program. We've sent it out to the Air Force wide. I just sent out a link to it yesterday. And now we've sent out a company officer development program to everybody to try to standardize some of that level of care to reduce down some of the risk that we've taken for years. We've been showing up at fire departments and been throwing us on the back of the truck and saying, go get after it. That's stuff that didn't make sense to me. The ASVAB score didn't make sense to me. So, I wrote all this stuff down along the way, and that's what I'm going after. And you'll have your opportunity one day. If you keep hanging in there and doing the right things and moving up, you'll have the ability to make some of the changes that you want. Maybe you'll change some of my stuff back. You can come in and say, we didn't know what he was talking about, and I'm going to fix this, So, and just keep on serving out there, continue, something I always say is proud, humble, confident. Those are my 3 words that I kind of just throw out there to everybody. And, that's what a firefighter needs. That's the traits that they need. They need to be proud of what they are, what they are, what they have, the equipment that they ride on. They need to take great pride in that, and that's very important to me, is that you have pride in what we do. You need to remain humble. Don't be pulling your trucks up to the front door of the commissary, blocking the fire lane so you can go in and get a steak for yourself. That's not who we are, right? We're not looking for a bunch of badges on our shoulders and pinned on our chest. We're not there for the medals, right? Be humble about what we do. And that's and then make sure that you keep your confidence level up, and that you're confident to the ability, the pride and the humility that you're showing out there every day. You want to be confident, and because there's a confidence in the people that we deal with on a regular basis. They are confident. There's no other job. You just show up on scene and they know you're going to do the right thing by it. Think about that. We show up on scene and people start to breathe easy. I mean, that's a pretty important thing when it comes down to just the straight up basic message, is that people start to breathe easier when we show up. If that don't impress you in some capacity, I don't know what will. They think we're superheroes, so let's act like it.
Chief, a lot of great thoughts. Thank you again for coming on. It was great talking with you.
Hey, thanks for both of you to put this on. I'm looking forward to more stories and more episodes. Can't wait to hear the next great thing you guys will put out there for us.
That will do it for this episode of the Fire Dog Podcast. You can find more content just like this regularly posted on our Facebook at facebook.com/the Fire Dog Podcast. That is facebook.com/the Fire DAWG Podcast. Did you know you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube? Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this episode. This has been Perry and Matt Wilson with our guest, Chief Master Sergeant Andy Morris. Until next time, stay safe.